Who here is a senior? God bless you. Who here is a junior? That's it, right? Everybody in this room is a senior. Oh, I'm pandering to a good audience. So, some of you are interested in maybe like finding jobs, right? Okay. Who here is a marketing major? You're all marketing majors, and we're going to talk about this. So, we're going till about 7:15. If you think of anything as far as questions, please just jot it down. I've got this whole New York City Jew-Italian thing. I may talk way too fast. Write it down. We're going to stop at 7:15, and then it's time for question and answer. I want to thank Jeff for inviting me in to talk to you guys tonight. Public Speaking 101. You have no idea who I am, so I got to build some trust in like 2 minutes or less. So, bottom line, 25 years, corporate America, downsized, laid off, right-sized, re-engineered 8 times. Never once for performance. Woke up in cold sweats, 2008, when I had been laid off from Time Warner Cable, from their management team. Turned to my wife. We were together 25 years, so I have no problems waking her up in a cold sleep. I said, honey, I know what I want to do. I want to spend the rest of my life helping as many people as possible find their dream job. We went to high school together, so she knows me really well. She rolled over, eyes still closed, said, it took you long enough to figure that out, and went back to bed. So I started my own business full time. I think I knew that I hated what I was doing all those years before, because I started my own business in 2004, like 4 years before that, as a career coach and a business coach. Bottom line, I help people find the jobs that they love, or if they hate working for other people and know in college that they don't want to ever work for anybody else, I help people start their own businesses. I wrote a book right after I left Time Warner Cable, Bulletproof Your Career. I've helped over 12,000 people find jobs. I've given talks in over 50 colleges, and I'm a professor at NYU, Columbia, Fordham, Hunter, Lehman, and Baruch. So tonight is all about branding, and I want to say this right now. This is going to sound harsh. I don't care what your major is. I don't care if you have a minor, dual major. For tonight and for the rest of your job search, you're going to be a marketing major. And if you're not sure what you want to do when you graduate, that's fine. I knew when I went to SUNY Albany as a freshman that I was going to be in political science. I was there 1 week, started taking classes, realized I hate SUNY Albany. Took me 2 years. I withdrew, got on a plane, went as far as I could, hit the West Coast, got off the plane, took a year to get residency, and finished up with an undergraduate degree. Communications with a minor in advertising. Said, sweet, I'm going to go kick ass in New York City as an advertising executive. Went back to New York City, where my wife and I are from. The advertising industry imploded, and I was out of work, and that was the first time of 9 layoffs in almost 25 years. The truth to this story is the next job you get is not going to, for almost all of you, not be the job you have for your whole career. The average American will change jobs between 8 to 10 times by the time she's 35. This is the new normal of work in America. You need to learn how to brand yourself as a product for career success. So when you go into that first interview or the interviews you're having and you're pitching yourself, you're selling your personal brand. So the question that begs asking, because in marketing you know that you cannot sell or market a product if you don't know it inside or out, is what's your personal brand? And for many of you, this may seem like a really cold approach to how you prep yourself for graduation. It's not. So the notion of what's a brand? It's a logo. Is it a tagline? Is it a jingle? When you graduate, or as you're getting ready to graduate, you start going into interviews. Your brand is a promise that any employer who's lucky enough to have you come work for them is going to get something from you. And it's a promise that you're going to deliver on 3 fronts. You're going to be memorable, invaluable, and unique. And by the way, my understanding from Jeff is this presentation is going to be up on their website, so you don't have to worry about writing stuff down. I want you to get an essence of this whole idea that It's not good enough to go in an interview and talk about your skills, your classwork, your major, any of the stuff you've done on the side to be good enough. You need to come across as being absolutely exceptional in every regard. And so if you're uncomfortable with this notion of how are you memorable and valuable, unique, start to think about yourself in those terms, because really, whether your major is bio, physics, engineering, accounting, you need to think as a marketer would, how do I pitch this brand? So, and I apologize, it's a little bit hard to see the screen, but you've got this really funky little shrimpy bird looking into a mirror, and it sees itself as an eagle. And the question I ask as you look into the mirror of the looking glass is, what do you see staring back at you? Because the perception that you have of who you are may be significantly different than how you come across. We all think we know who we are inside our own skin, but I want to tell you guys something. What a really, really great exercise is to ask people in your family, your friends, your frat, the basketball team you play on, any people who know you well, 3, 4, 5 people, that's fine for this exercise. Ask them how they would describe you. It doesn't have to be a boyfriend, girlfriend, it doesn't have to be a significant other, somebody who knows you well. Start to pay attention to the adjectives they use to describe you. This is going to seem, I get it, I understand if this sounds completely alien to some of you guys. You need to start understanding how you come across. Because how you think you pitch yourself, present yourself, how you think you communicate to the world, who you are, may be a little bit different. Your brand is everything that makes you you. Everything. All the time that you're communicating with people, you're having conversations, the papers that you hand in to your professors, the way you engage each other. When you get into group projects, you ever notice how there are 2, 3, 4 people on a group, and one of them automatically starts saying after an awkward silence when you pair up, so I think we should start to, and they start telling the others what they should do? You know people who are like that. You may or may not be that person yourself. Those are leaders. How do you engage everybody you come across? How do you act? We were talking before this talk started tonight about some issues with theft on campus. And it's unfortunate that people here at Wagner College are having their personal effects stolen by people who lack a moral compass. What's your moral compass? When you say something, do you do it? These are the kind of things that start to build a brand. It may sound really, really, really weird that I'm talking about this tonight. You may be thinking, tell me how to find a job. This is how you come across when you speak to a recruiter or somebody who's phone screening you over the phone for an interview to decide whether they want to invite you in. This has everything to do with your resume as a sales tool. How does your brand come through loud and clear, regardless of what your major is? We're not talking about GPA. We're talking about the sum total of everything you've done here in your senior year in your academic career at Wagner. It's everything. Everything you've done and everything you're doing for the winter semester, going into March, April, May, when you start having interviews and getting called in to meet with people at potential employers. So the first thing I want to say is, you have no idea who I am, we just met, do not waste your whole life working in jobs that suck, that you hate, that don't fulfill you. Life is too short. I want you to go out of here tonight, walk through those 2 doors, and say to yourself, the 2 wooden ones with the brass, with the gold copper handles, whatever. What are you really good at? Your skills, your class, your study, your major, your minor, and what's your passion? Life's too short. Don't think about a job as a job title. Job titles change. I would rather you spend time thinking about what do you love to do and what are you really strong at, And where those two worlds collide, overlap, that's your dream job. Save yourself 25 or 30 years of pain. I'm not going to talk about that really. Other than, has anybody here ever, as part of a class assignment, taken a personality test? Which class did you take it in?
I didn't take a class, but I took the Myers-Briggs test.
Okay. There are tools that you can take online, and I always say this wrong. The Center for Academic and Career Engagement can walk you through the benefit of understanding the kind of stuff that fulfill you. I talk to engineers and accounting students every day. I talk to marketing students every day, communications, PR, business students. It doesn't matter what your major is. Students will have completely different backgrounds and experiences. This is really important because guess what? It doesn't matter what your major is. That won't determine how happy you are in your job. The two most important factors that'll determine how kick-ass it is for you, the relationship you have with your manager and the culture of the organization, whether it's a company like LinkedIn or Meetup or Google or Groupon, or whether it's a more traditional company like IBM or Coca-Cola. The culture of that place that you go to work in will determine if you hate it the first day you walk in. Like the first day that I actually stopped drinking long enough to go to my first classes at SUNY Albany and said, this school stinks. You knew it right away. It's palpable. You need to know what your personality is as a brand so you figure out where your ideal organizational culture is. What are you strong at? This is not something that I'm asking you because it's going to go in your resume. It's starting to think about when you sit down in front of one or two or three people interviewing you for a job, you can speak confidently that you know who you are. And that sounds odd, but again, I've met thousands of students, and very few, when they're going out on an interview to start to look for that first job out of college, understand what it feels like to sit across from somebody who has your fate in their hands, like a job, and to talk about what are your strengths, what are your areas for improvements, what do you know that you're really strong at. Because in an interview, or when you're speaking to potential employers, you're going to have to know how to talk about the things that make you unique, memorable, and valuable. That's a brand. There are two kinds of culture in any organization: formal and informal. The formal is the culture the organization would love you to believe it's all about. It's on their website. It's when their senior executives or their human resources team tells you about what it's like to work in that organization. It's on their press releases. It's on their job postings on Craigslist and Career Builder. And we have another phrase for it. It's called BS. The informal culture is what you're going to start thinking about now. In 3 to 4 industries, 18 to 32 organizations in all, what are the places you would love to work at? If I said to you, where would you love to work? And you said the Knicks or the Rangers or Madison Square Garden or Modell's, and I were to say to you, why? You could explain to me the culture. If you said Zappos or Tom Shoes or LinkedIn, for example, or Starbucks, I'd ask you why, and you need to be able to explain, I found out that in this company or this organization, the informal culture treats people of color differently. They treat women differently. They have certain things that make that informal culture attractive to you. Then I know that you've embraced some of the lessons of tonight, and when you talk to the Career Center folks, they've started to tell you about the informal culture of organizations that your brand is ideal for. Again, it doesn't matter as much what your major is or your coursework or your GPA. It's a given that your grades are pretty sharp. It's strong. It's a given that you did well at Wagner. That's a given when you go and interview. I want you to start thinking about, as a brand, talking about what makes you unique and valuable and memorable. And it's just as important, the place you're going to interview at, in terms of their culture, that you fit your brand in there. Going to work at a company like Bloomberg is significantly different than going to work in a company like Reuters. Both are news and financial information global companies. One is hardcore New York City billionaire short diminutive mayor startup. That's Bloomberg. The other is Reuters. British, get in the office at 10 a.m., drink lots of pints of beer, go work until 7 o'clock, go play rugby or flag football, and then come back in the office at 10 a.m. And it's why I was never happy at Reuters, as successful as I was there. You need to fit who you are with the informal culture of the organizations that would be perfect for you. 3 steps on this journey. You gotta think about this, because while everybody you know who is getting ready to graduate may have trouble finding work, you will not. If you follow this flow process, this 3-step plan, you'll have a much stronger chance of not only getting work before you graduate or right after you graduate, it'll be an opportunity that will lead more clearly to a stronger career track. As opposed to, do you want fries with that? So the 3-step process is personal mission statement. You're going to write this, your positioning statement, and your proposition statement. I'm hoping this sounds completely alien to you guys, because I wish somebody snatched me up when I was in college and said, you're going about it all wrong. You're just trying to, I was scrambling to find any internship. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, I had 1, 2, 3 internships a semester. I was always trying to get work, but it was in pretty much every industry. This is the way you need to start thinking, because by the time you do this, and you're ready to start interviewing, whether it's a job fair here on campus or you're going out into the business community to interview, you're going to ace any interview you go on if you do this. Ma'am in the green shirt, all the way in the back. Can you hear me okay? How's my voice? You too. Good. Are we good? So if I go down, you're going to go like this? Okay. Personal mission statement. This is going to sound totally odd. When is he going to talk about our resume? And when is he going to talk about our major and our GPA? I'm not. That doesn't mean anything. I want to talk to you about your personal mission statement. You're going to write a 2, 3, or 4 sentence paragraph about what it is that you're seeking as your personal mission for the rest of your career, life after Wagner. What are the things you want to accomplish in your career? That's right. I'm asking you now. What are the things that you hold most valuable? Family, relationships, trust. You can say it if it's honest. Career success. You want to make a lot of money when you graduate. You want to work in a job you love. How do you fit, if at all, your family into your career? That was a big one I wish somebody had said to me. At some point you're going to have a family. You should understand it's okay not to say that we're going to forego our family to invest 50, 60, 80 hours a week at work. And your family comes second. So the things that are valuable to you, you're going to start to write about in your notepad or on the computer, on your laptop. Start to jot down ideas that you have. What are your strengths? What are your passions? If you're into sports, video, music, event planning, public relations, start to think about that now. Start writing down the things that are really important to you. This is as simple as it gets, but it's a really powerful tool. I just worked with 6 students at New Jersey Institute of Technology to place them in 2 startups. This was the primary reason. They found jobs in doing what they wanted to do. You ask yourself, what's really important to you? And you just start listing things. Least important to most important. So for example, security. There is no such thing as job security. It doesn't exist. That's least important. You would flag that on your list. Creativity, competitiveness. Again, when you get this PowerPoint presentation, just print out these slides and just start checking off the stuff that's most important to you. Because what you're going to do, and there's a website I reference, it's an awesome website that has a whole bunch of template like drafts that you can download. I want you to think about the following phrase. Your mission statement, your personal mission statement. This is the first step as you're getting ready to graduate over the next few months. I value, and you say certain adjectives, things that are important to you. Family, money, career success. Because, and then you say the reasons they're important to you. And so therefore, I will do the following. What I'm getting at here is, while you're studying for your finals, as you're getting ready to start figuring out who you want to go interview at, and as you're getting ready to say goodbye to all your fellow students and your time at Wagner is coming to a close, I want you walking out of the door here of the college and into an employer's organization. And so that piece of it is, how do you see yourself transitioning? How do you see your brand fitting into an organization? The mission statement is exactly how you're going to go about doing this. So here's an example. It's a little bit dated in that the person I worked with is not in his 20s. He was in his late 40s, and he had already had 3 heart attacks. But I'll read this one to you, because this is what I want you to think about. My personal mission, so you're thinking as a college graduate, my personal mission is to, and then this individual's personal mission statement is a little bit different. Take time every day to reflect, to realize what I learned throughout my career, what I should learn, things like saying thank you, give myself a pat on the back. The individual that I worked with was a graduate from Harvard University, went to start a hedge fund because he had said throughout his career making money was the most important thing. Turns out he burned through 3 marriages. His children don't speak to him anymore. He had, as I said, 3 heart attacks. And when we sat down and I said, where do you want to be the rest of your career, the rest of your life? It was all about money, success, next hedge fund. And then as I fought with him, we started to talk about what his personal mission statement is. So my question to you guys is, don't wait till your 3rd heart attack in your 40s. Think right now, as you're getting ready to graduate, what would be the ideal opportunity for you in an organization where you felt like you were being really creative, you were doing what you meant to do, you were having fun? The worst thing you can do on a Monday morning or a Friday morning for 30, 40, 50 years is to wake up and say, I have to go to work. It sounds like a death sentence. How many years you in for? I'm 24. How many years you in? I'm 16. How many years? Oh no, I'm a Wagner senior. I haven't been incarcerated yet. Don't think like that. The personal mission statement is a way to start saying, this is what I want to do for the rest of my career. It's not too early for you. I wish somebody had done this with me throughout my career. I want you to sit down. I want you to think, okay, February 26th, 2013. Write down where you see yourself today. Where are you right now? It's a starting point of what we call a 40-year plan. So 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? Write it down. Write it down. Write down where you see yourself. Are you in grad school? Did you start your own e-commerce website? Did you start your own mobile app business? Did you go to graduate school, business school, law school? Write down where you're going to be in 5 years, in another 5 years. So that's the personal mission statement. It's step 1. And this may seem like, what is he talking about? This makes no sense to me. Good. It will make sense, I promise. It seems like a kind of long route to take. Instead of just, can you check out my resume? This is a 3-step process. So step 2, your positioning statement. If you're in an interview and you're talking, they want to understand what makes you exceptional. What's your brand about? So you would say, based on my background, this is the position I'm in to help your company, your organization, your nonprofit. And it might sound like this. These are the classes I've taken. These are the extracurriculars. This is the sorority or fraternity I belong to. This is the volunteer work I did. These are the internships that I took. This is, I worked in the Career Center. I worked in these departments or the student union on campus. I was a member of the college chapter of the American Management or the Business Marketing Association. It's a list of things you've done throughout your 4-year career that you're going to sell. Are you in a position to tell somebody, why should I hire you? I started out when I graduated from college, the first thing I did was write Yellow Pages advertising copy. That is the cat's ass of advertising. This was before the internet, there was no such thing, but Yellow Pages were really successful. And so if you had a book for the Manhattan or Chicago or Atlanta or the Los Angeles metropolitan area, there were companies, big companies, national companies who I wrote their advertising copy. It did probably wonders for my resume writing because you have to be able to say in very few words every time somebody's reading your resume or reading your, let's say, papers that you brought in to your interview, any salesmanship in print, anything you've ever done, people are going to ask, think about advertising copy. So what? Who cares? That's harsh. That is a harsh, harsh thing to have to tell you. But imagine in this room that you look to your left, and then you look to your right. Imagine you go on an interview and there's not 10, there's not 20, there's 100 maybe, or 200 candidates that they're weeding through just to get to you. This is the reality of today's job market. So you ask yourself, from a positioning standpoint, what do you have to offer that makes you unique and valuable, memorable? Don't just start listing, spewing classes you've taken. That doesn't matter. You have to talk about ways that you've achieved success throughout your academic career and your extracurriculars, and really start to think about what makes your brand exceptional. That's what marketing does. You're defining your unique selling proposition. These are the things that I want you to start thinking about. Did you ever take a leadership role in a club, organization, food drive, an event that was happening on campus? After Sandy, did you go out into the community and do volunteer work? These are the kind of things I want you to start thinking about. So you've done a personal mission statement, step 1. You did a positioning statement, step 2. Now's the proposition statement. The personal mission statement is, this is where I want to be as a college graduate from Wagner the rest of my career. The positioning statement is based on your background, your experience, your skills. I'm in a position to help your organization. This should start to sound like it's almost coming around to be like interview talk, interview speak. Step 3 is your proposition statement. Based on your personal mission statement, it says that LinkedIn is the ideal organization for you to go work at. And because of your position statement, the stuff that you've done as a student at Wagner College or throughout your academic career, going back to high school or even junior high school, I am the ideal student at Wagner College. I'm the ideal candidate to achieve success in this role. I propose that. Anytime you go in an interview, you better be prepared to propose some strategic recommendations that you can suggest they make to take advantage of your brand. Whether it's Nike, Skechers, New Balance, Reebok, Adidas, Puma. I mean, you have to be in a position to market yourself as an exceptional set of solutions to the challenges they face. That's a brand. Think about everything that is your background, your coursework, your extracurriculars, all this stuff, your volunteer work, internships, paid, unpaid work, a family business, family restaurant, anything that you can point to, your involvement in sports, anything that makes you exceptional. That's the 3-step process. Traditional marketing used to be 5 Ps: your product, price, place, promotion, packaging. I'm going to talk a little bit about this really quick, but do you blog? Do you put yourself out there as a subject matter expert? Have you been involved on team competitions? Have you been involved in anything that you can point to as a brand as you're starting to think about distinguishing yourself, to have what's called the unique selling proposition? If you're sending out your resume, you may be competing with 80 or 800 other candidates. What makes you truly unique? That's what's going on right now. And so there are a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They're what's called thrifty, or the dollar store. They have no exceptional qualifications. They've spent a whole career where all they have to offer is a Me Too brand. They say, hi, I do that too. I'm a marketing coordinator. I'm a marketing assistant. I'm an administrative assistant. You don't want to think that way. You want to think about being in a position to promote yourself. For anybody who wants this, and I'd be happy to send this to Jeff tonight, there's a really simple document that I've created for my clients, whether they're in their teens. I've worked in prisons, Air Force bases, Gallaudet, a deaf university. Regardless of what your background is, you want to have a marketing plan. And these are the details. So you want to think about what you've done, write down your core competencies. Marketing, had 2 internships. I spent a semester working at Staples. You want to write down your core competencies. I want you to think about if somebody were to describe you as a job seeker, what are the job titles they would use? So for example, if you've got a business major and you're thinking about finance, accounting, marketing, communications, PR, those would be the sectors, like marketing. What's your job title, potentially? Marketing coordinator, marketing administrator. You want to start understanding out in the marketplace, if you were to get a job at a company or an organization, a nonprofit, what would the job titles be? You have to start getting a sense of how you would equate yourself with a set of job titles. What are you looking for? When you graduate, do not say a job. That's, What are you looking for in terms of, would you love a place to work where the first week on the job they gave you an iPad? Would you love a place to work where they found out that you used to play soccer, so they sign you up that same week at Zog Sports to compete in a rec league? Would you love to go to a place where the first week they fly you out to Los Angeles? A boy, he's not a boy, a young man that worked in my wife's law firm was lucky enough, he created a situation where he was lucky enough by following some of the stuff I said. He recently got a job at LinkedIn, which is one of the hottest companies to work for. It's in Manhattan. How did he do it? By talking about the fact that he came from Southern California and he was a surfer, but he also wrote poems. He was also a little bit of a Renaissance guy. He had a few stories published in newspapers, and he basically positioned himself as he was a great researcher, he was a great writer, but he had all these outside interests. The person who was a senior vice president who hired him, fellow surfer. So I want you to think about, as you're positioning yourself, what are the job titles in certain industries that you'd love to work for? In the best of times, and we're not in the best of times, we've been in a depression for 4 years. In the best of times, no more than 5 to 10% of all available jobs were advertised. You can't find a job by looking at what's advertised. You'll never, ever, ever find employment. You have to think about your brand, and then you have to go out into the marketplace, and you have to package yourself as a set of solutions to the challenges that companies or nonprofits in 3 or 4 industries that they have a need for somebody with your background. Your brand is unique, memorable, invaluable. What do you have to offer as a set of solutions? Think about your personal mission statement. Where would you want to work for the rest of your career? Then your positioning statement, step 2, based on where I would want to be because of my values and beliefs and the kind of organizations I could work for, I'm in a position to help some organizations based on my background experience. The proposition statement is you do research starting now. 18 to 32 organizations. You're going to identify as much as you can about them and create a sales script so that when you pick up the phone and call the woman or man who's the person you'd report to at that organization, you already have a script of what you're going to say. And so what that sounds like is this. How did I get 18 to 32 organizations, whether they're companies, nonprofits, government agencies? The 18 to 32 rule is pretty simple. 3 to 4 industries, whether it's sports, media, entertainment, 3 to 4 industries, and 6, 7, or 8 organizations in each. You should know everything about them so that when you write your call script and you know who you would report to in a job in that company like LinkedIn, the job doesn't exist, but you know who you would report to in that ideal job. You've done all the research you can. You pick up the phone, you call her, you call him, and you introduce yourself. And the goal of that call, after you introduce that you're a student at Wagner College, you're getting ready to graduate with a degree in business, you've done research into their organization, you can help them in the following 1 or 2 ways. You'd like to schedule 30 minutes to sit down with them in the next week or 2. That's what's going on in the job market. You guys have to know about organizations that you'd want to work for. There's a difference between Mashable and Groupon and Skype and Foursquare and Tumblr. I mean, some of these companies you'd want to work for in a heartbeat. Some of them, hell no, you would not want to work there. Trust me, they may sound sexy from the outside. They're awful places to work. Or Meetup, fantastic place to work. Where do you want to be? You have to start doing the research. When you sit down with your career development coordinator in Jeff's office, I would want you to sit down with your notebook and say, okay, these are the following organizations I've researched. You know where they are located, you know enough about their products or services, you know about their structure, you know if they're a publicly traded company, you've spoken to people who work there or know people who work there, you know about their informal culture, and from everything you've researched, this sounds like a place where my brand could really shine. There's no excuse anymore. You guys don't have to go to the library, to the Dewey Decimal System, that funky wooden thing with the drawers, and you pull it. Am I dating myself? Do you guys know these things? They have no idea. You'd pull out the stacks of cards, and the cards would each have articles, and then you'd have to go down to the dirty room in the basement with all the dust and the 800-year-old librarian, and she'd give you the microfiche. And there's no excuse for you not to have at your fingertips Bing, Yahoo, and Google. You can find almost any piece of information in any organization. I'm going to tell you there's one website, learnwebskills.com/company. It's the bold thing at the bottom there. It's got thousands of resources if you don't feel comfortable researching companies. So when you think about your resume, took them long enough. When you think about your resume, if you've had help or if you haven't had help, has everybody had help writing your resume? I'm glad many of you have not, because most people who give advice have no idea what they're talking about. For example, if anybody ever says to you, aunt, grandmother, father, sibling, friend, oh, your resume should only be X number of pages, or this is the only way you should do that, you know that they love you, but they have no idea what they're talking about. Because today, you have to set yourself apart as being exceptional. All the buddies that you have around this table are your competitors. That's how hardcore it is. How do you set yourself apart? I want you to go back and think about all the stuff you've ever done in your career. This might be easier in your 20s than in your 50s. Think about summer jobs, paid work, unpaid work, volunteer work, working in a crisis center, being a mentor, coaching, teaching, food drives. Anything you've ever done, going back to high school, junior high school, clubs, you belong to organizations, start writing this down. I don't see anybody writing, and that's making me nervous. Because what you should do is you start writing this down, is you start to highlight things that you remember you did, that you love to do, that you may have forgotten, because now you're really old people, you know, you're seniors in college. But you're writing down all the stuff that you've done, and you start to identify the stuff you love doing, because in your mid-20s and late 20s and early 30s and throughout your career, you guys are going to try to do that stuff during weekends and nights. They're called hobbies on the side, because the jobs you got stuck with made you so miserable that you needed some outlet to unleash your creative stuff. I want you to find the next place you go to work for after you graduate, or as you're getting ready to graduate, you land a job at a place that you love working at. But in order to do that, don't start updating your resume and your cover letter. Spend some time thinking about all the stuff you've done that you love doing. We'll put it together and we'll get it a job title later on. Right now you want to think about the stuff that you love to do. What is that? Sports? Film? Music? Do you love to work on teams or groups? Do you hate working in groups? Do you love to work on your own? Do you love work? If you ever had a group project or a class project where you had to give a presentation, did you love getting up there and speaking? Or did you hate it so much that you broke out into hives and you had an allergic reaction? You think about the stuff you've done throughout your career at Wagner College. This is the kind of stuff that you need to start packaging into your brand. Okay. It's really tough for anybody to tell you how to write a resume. It's really tough because the resume is a sales tool. It sells you. how in the world are you going to write a document that a complete stranger is going to take a look at and they're going to say, oh, I get it. I know exactly what I need to know about you. It's impossible. Having said that, I can tell you that most people emotionally check out from those of us professionals who read resumes for a living. We stop reading resumes after like 3 seconds, 5 seconds. They're written that poorly. Start with this central idea. You're not going to have one resume. Today's resume, in today's job search market, you'll update your resume the way we old farts used to do cover letters. Every time there was a job or an opportunity, we saw a company or a job posting in the Career Center that we wanted to get ready to apply for, we would write a customized cover letter. Well, now what you're going to do is you're going to partially customize your resume. So it's taking on some aspects of a cover letter. The other thing I want to talk about is for every internship or job that you have listed under the experience section of your resume, and I'm going to talk through this, every bullet point on your resume in the experience section should be written the following way. If you think about, if you think about an acronym, CAR, what was the challenge, a challenge you faced there? What actions did you take? What were the results? Your brand, when you go out and sell it as a marketer to potential buyers of that brand or employers, they're going to see you sitting in that chair across the table from them interviewing you as hopefully a set of solutions to problems they have. And those of you who are most successful when you're getting ready to start interviewing, understand that you need to go into every interview pitching yourself as a set of solutions to the problems that they face. So I'm going to show you a little bit about this, but I want you to think, what are the 3 or 4 most, the things you've done, maybe through your academic career or jobs you've had, that you're most proud of? Your accomplishments. Was it a project in school? Was it something you did as a volunteer? Whatever it was. Did you have a story published? Did you have an article published? Were you interviewed? 3 or 4 things that you would consider as being a success story, that you would go out on an interview and you would say during the course of the interview something to the effect of, time out, hold on, we haven't gotten to my success stories. Let me tell you what makes me unique and valuable and memorable. But you're not going to say that in those words, but during the course of an interview, you need to be prepared to say, you know what you should know about me during my academic career at Wagner College? Bam, bam, bam. 3 or 4 things. If you're not prepared, don't bother going to the interview. That's how harsh it is. You need to convey a sense of professionalism in that you're bringing to the table a few core successes and skills that they cannot do without. How in the world did LinkedIn ever manage to exist before you walked in the front door? This is the mindset that I want you to get into as an exceptional marketer, marketing organization selling the product of you. This is what you do, by the way, when you go work a job fair. Has anybody ever gone to a job fair? Hell no. Really?
We're working on it.
Good. You have an opportunity to update your resume. When you go on an interview, when you're talking to people who may know people who work at a company you may want to work at, that's an interview. It's an informational interview. We're going to talk about that, but I just want to get to resumes. There's no way you can see this. I get that. But you're going to get the slides. It used to be that when we, old folk, were in school, we would put an objective. Has anybody ever heard of this? You put an objective at the top of the resume? Think about that. What you're saying is, this is what I'm looking for. Remember, they don't care about what you're looking for. No objective. So then people got slick, and as I started coaching them, I would say, no. You want at the top, in the first 3 to 5 seconds, a statement that defines who you are and what you have to offer. This is called, you may have heard of it, a personal mission statement. He's bringing this stuff back. You may the point of this is, you're not going to call it a personal mission statement. On the top of your resume, you're going to do something that distinguishes you from students at MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Harvard, Yale, second-rate institutions. You're going to put a value proposition at the top of your resume below your contact details. The value proposition is a combination of your personal mission statement and your positioning statement. If you weren't writing this down, you're screwed, because he did bring it all back full circle. He said he would, and he did. He likes to talk about himself in the third party. Your value proposition is a statement of 2 to 3 sentences that gives a highlight about who you are, your academic career, your field of study, any coursework you've taken that's relevant, and any internships or summer jobs or work you've had through your 4-year career. Whether it's been all here or you split time at other colleges and then transferred here, that's what you want to put on your resume. You need to have, does everybody here have a LinkedIn profile? Good. You may want to take, what was that, April 4th, 6th, 9th? That social media class? You should, 4th. You all should have a LinkedIn profile, which has the same messaging in it as your resume does. So your value proposition may say something to the effect of exceptional marketing student with minor in advertising and coursework completed at Wagner College in the fields of direct marketing, digital marketing, social media. You want to build out your value proposition so that if I read your resume, I'd know in 3 or 4 lines what you've done in your career. Information is shaped on your resume like a pyramid. You start at the top with some detail of who you are as a summary, and then if I want more information, I read down. Always use numbers in your resume. When you say you worked on a team, it's a team of how many? When you say you were published in a student paper, you'd say I'm published in a student paper circulated to 1,500 students at Wagner with pass-along readership of 4,000. Always use numbers to tell a story about your background. So you guys are going to start writing cover letters. Once you start finding out those 18 to 32 organizations in those 3 to 4 industries where you've done a whole lot of research, the cover letter is a headline. Right across the top, you're writing ad copy. The best classes I ever took to prepare me for my career, advertising, communications classes. Actually, classes I stayed awake for were helpful. You want to write a headline, 6, 7, 8 words that defines why you are a set of solutions to Facebook, LinkedIn, Meetup, whomever. You can tell when I get your cover letter that either you've done research and figured out what I need to know from you about the research you've done into my organization, or you have no idea what I do, my company does. The way I figure that one out is you write me a cover letter and it says, "To whom it may concern," or "Dear Sir" or "Madam." That's an emotional connection. And then in the first paragraph it says, "I'm writing to express my interest in the marketing administrator job that you advertised." Okay, at least you've told me that you know that there's a position. The second paragraph, traditionally, this is how most people write their cover letters, and this is why most people don't ever get responses when they send their cover letters in. The second paragraph is they just throw a whole bunch of stuff they've done throughout their college career in the hopes that the person reads through it and says, "Oh, yeah, you could do this job. Let's call you and bring you in." And the third paragraph, they'll do a close. "I look forward to hearing from you." Or maybe if they're proactive, they'll say, "I will follow up with a call to your office next Tuesday." And they haven't done any research to say, "Dear Ms. Furby," let's say Ms. Furby is a chief marketing officer at LinkedIn. Throughout my academic career at Wagner, I've taken a number of courses where I've assessed social media companies. I've been impressed with LinkedIn's growth, the kind of markets LinkedIn's going into, LinkedIn's strategic marketing strategy of taking on more college students who already have accounts with Facebook. Now you're starting to preach to the choir. You're starting to indicate, okay, you've done some research, you know some of my business challenges. And then what I want to see in your last paragraph, the third paragraph of your cover letter, is I will follow up with a phone call to your office next Tuesday at 10 p.m. to schedule a time to meet with you. And then next Tuesday at, 10 a.m. Next Tuesday at 10 a.m., do you call them? If you said you were going to call them, and I'm trying not to be a smart aleck, but 9 times out of 10, with my own students, in my classes, and the colleges I teach in, we'll sit and we'll do all the research, we'll write a cover letter. They'll say in the third paragraph that I'll call you next Monday at 9 a.m. And then when I get back into class with them later that next week, and I say, so how did the phone call go? It would amaze you how many times I hear from my students, oh, I didn't have a chance to call them. You guys are going to sit down with the drafts of your cover letters to those target companies. You've decided their informal culture matches your brand. You're going to sit down with the Career Center and go through each of those letters, really kind of make sure that you're comfortable with them. But ideally, those cover letters you wrote, you'll never mail them. Because they're really not cover letters, they're call scripts. I don't want you to email or mail. I want you to pick up the phone and call the individual, because psychologists have shown that you make a stronger emotional connection when somebody hears your voice. Your first pass-through is to write the script, which is a cover letter, that you will send them as a backup if you can't get through to them over the phone. I want you to actually call these people. You have your cover letter, you will have already rehearsed it, and you'll have gotten the blessing from the Career Center that this is an absolutely spot-on, well-constructed marketing sales pitch, because your brand is promoted and highlighted effectively. You pick up the phone and call them, and the goal of every single call is to get an interview, get a meeting. This may sound alien, it may sound odd, it may sound like a lot of work, it may sound contradictory to anything you may have heard from other people who have given you advice about how to go about starting to look for a job search. But this is the reality of finding work in today's contract economy. Jeff, should I talk about recruiting firms? Go over to the high level? I started my career when I came back to New York City, and I started working in advertising and was laid off because our ad agency lost the Pizza Hut account. My girlfriend, the woman I woke up in the middle of the night years later, my wife Sonia, she went to law school down in D.C., so I followed her down. I went to business school. I got my MBA in marketing. The first job I had down there, I was a recruiter for a national temporary agency. So I've spent 25 years working with recruiting firms. Recruiting firms, it's important you understand, are not your friend. They don't care about us, the job seeker. They have a client, which is an organization who's paid them money, hired them to go find people to work in their company. So what you want to do, if you have, let's say, a major in communications, PR, advertising, and you want to work in a certain industry, some recruiting firms specialize in certain industries. You want to find out who those recruiters are, and they can introduce you to Vibe or Billboard or a company I'm working with that just got funding money called Dopeness. You want to find, if you're into hip-hop, you want to find the key recruiters, 2 or 3, in each industry that you're interested in, those 3 to 4 industries. There's a book called the Kennedy Red Book. It's a list of it's a list of recruiters by industry. You need to figure out that a recruiting firm, if they have a client that's one of those 6, 7, or 8 organizations in each of the industries you're going after, if that's a client, let's say Sony or Reuters or LinkedIn, they're currently a recruiting firm that those companies hire to place students or graduates. You want to put together, earlier on I told you guys there was a marketing plan document I've created. The reason you fill that out is you send it to recruiters and you say, these are the companies in music or entertainment or sports marketing that I'm interested in. If you have any clients that you do recruiting for, feel free to send them my information for any jobs that you think as a graduate of Wagner College I'd be ideally suited for. If not, before you go ahead and send them my information, you have to call me first. You want to use recruiters as a resource. So let's say somebody offers you a job that's not full-time, that's not permanent. You may want to still consider taking it. It's called contract work. The way our business and industry is morphing or transforming in the 21st century American workforce, 1 out of 4 jobs are contract, independent consulting jobs. So you may get an offer that somebody says, come work for us, but it's not permanent. You have to weigh the benefits. Is it full-time? Is it in a company you'd love to work for? Is there the opportunity that it could become permanent? Will you get a chance to travel? Will you get a chance to go out late at night for the PR firm that you're working for, selling vodka products and going to raves and dances and dance clubs? Well, that sounds interesting. It's not a permanent job, but it's real work experience. I'll take it. Can just think about the fact that there's an avenue available to you of contract work, that you may get an offer for a position that's not a permanent full-time hire. You may want to consider that, depending on the type of job it is. If you have a job fair that's set up by Wagner, or if you see that there are job fairs that are going on that you want to attend. The job fair is a group of potential employers get together in one place, and a whole bunch of job-seeking candidates, college seniors, get dressed up in their professional suit. They get copies of their resume. You bring copies of your business card. You should all have business cards front and back. You walk in. You find out who's going to be there before you show up. And if any of those organizations are between the 18 to 32 you're interested in, you try and find out from the job fair organizer who are the employees for those organizations that are going to be there, and do research on them. This is what finding a job means in today's. I wish it was the 1980s and you guys were all graduates. It was a hell of a lot easier. I wish it was the 90s. I wish it was the 2000s. The last 4 years, we've been in a depression. I can't say it enough. Do you guys know what the unemployment rate is in this country?
20%.
What?
8% around.
Yeah, 7.8, 7.9. That's what we call BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics. The official unemployment rate is 7.8%, right? The number is actually more than 2 times higher than that in this country. Why? Because when you factor in the people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who have quit looking for new jobs because they've been out of work 1, 2, 3, 4 years or longer, or people with PhDs getting paid $18 an hour. So that's what today's new normal is. If you've checked out emotionally from my talk tonight, if you're bored, if you feel like what I'm saying isn't resonating with you, that's cool. But the reason I'm here tonight is to talk to you about a whole new way of job searching given what's going on in today's job market. I have had tens of thousands of people I've spoken to over the last 4 years. High school students to people in their late 60s. The experience is fundamentally the same for them. The ones who do the job searching the old way, we'll call it 20th century, they're not finding work. I don't want you guys to have to go through this. Be unemployed for a few years after you graduate and wake up every morning and say, this is not why I went to college. I went to higher education. This is what I want you to think about. For example, a job fair. The job fair is a group of organizations who are looking for workers. You know, for example, that in a job fair, there are going to be people who work in companies, excuse me, who are always looking for employees. There are industries and sectors where there's a high turnover rate. They churn them up, they bring you in, and they spit you out. For example, insurance services. New York Life, AXA, MetLife, the quiet company, the company you keep. I mean, these companies can't keep their employees because they burn them up, they bring you in, they churn you out. It's ridiculous. So when you go to job fairs, you almost always see those companies. You need to know when you go to a job fair, as an example, when you're getting your brand out there, who's going to be there? Are any organizations there that are worth your time? If not, you don't go. Your brand is going to be online and offline. You need to think about having your Facebook, a more professional Facebook account. You need to think about Twitter, utilizing it to follow people in the industries you want. And LinkedIn is your online version of your resume. Within those three, you're also going to leverage a website called Meetup. It's free. You go in, you create an account, and you search based on where you live, your zip code, and you search on the kinds of keywords that somebody who's graduating with the degree, your major and your minor, they have, and the kind of jobs you're looking for. And you search where people who are professionals or recent college graduates get together or meet up. And so you're going to start getting opportunities to go out and build your public speaking skills and be able to start talking about your brand at networking events. Now, I've spent years coaching high school students and college students how to work an event. The best way I can suggest is an awesome tool called the 521 rule. Think about Americans as the ADD society. Anybody who took a communications or advertising class, you know the average American gets hit with between 7,000 and 11,000 messages a day. It's called clutter. How do you break through the clutter? When you go out to a networking event or you go to a job fair, you have to say something in 5 seconds that catches their attention, that says, wow, what does that mean? Tell me more. So the 5 is in 5 seconds you have to say something about your brand that's unique and valuable, memorable. So if they say, tell me more. The 2 is in the next few minutes, next 2 minutes. And this is not an exact science. It just gives you an idea about how your mind has to work. You explain in a little bit more detail, though, that original statement you made that hooked them in. And then the 1 in the 521 is the goal of every conversation you have at a job fair, a phone call, an informational interview, any discussion you ever have with anybody as you're starting to get ready to graduate. The outcome should be, that's fantastic. We'd love to meet with you. Let's schedule a time for you to come into our office and sit down with us. You should have a list of your friends, your family of friends, your friends of family, thank you. Start to build out a list of people you know in your professional and social organizations and whom they know. What groups do you belong in? What activities? What Greek organizations? What sports teams? What honor societies? Did you work on the paper? Were you involved in intramurals? Any organizations where you know people, start to think about the people you know. I will say this, while some of you who have the same majors maybe be competing with each other in this room, if you both wanted to graduate and go send in an application at the same company, you're also a powerful networking group. As you're getting ready to graduate, I want you to think alumni. Alumni. You're transitioning from the end of your senior year. As you say, bye-bye, Wagner, you hear pomp and circumstance, you have your gown, you get your diploma, you throw your hat in the air, you kill a bird, and then you're leaving, and then you walk out of the campus, and then onto the alumni organization. I want you to think about your friends here as a group of professional contacts that you network with. Think about people, where they work, who knows somebody who knows somebody. Get out there. Start meeting with people. Keep track. I'll never forget when I was in California, and I was in the American Marketing Association, the student chapter. I was the vice president, and I also worked in the student union. And I'm sitting there listening to these professional people that came out on campus to do a job fair in the student union, and they're talking blah, 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 blah. And I'm serving them hand and foot because I hear them say something about Monster, Monster.com, Monster.com. When I was getting ready to graduate, Monster.com was the new Groupon or Tumblr. It was like the hot new company. And so they were talking. I said, ooh, do you guys work at Monster? And they said, yeah. I said, oh, that's great. I'm getting ready to graduate. I'm a major. I have a business degree, communications, advertising minor. Are you hiring? I said, yeah, but we're hiring. We're on the East Coast. I said, that's fine. I'm saying goodbye to my girlfriend, and I'm packing up my suitcases, and I'm leaving in 3 weeks to go back to New York City, because that's where I'm from. They said, when you come into the office, when you move back into the city, handed me their business cards, you should come check us out. We'd love to see if you fit in. We're hiring a bunch of college graduates who have business degrees, disciplines in marketing, advertising, PR. You don't have those opportunities sitting in your dorm rooms or in your off-campus housing. You don't have those opportunities hanging out in your insular group of friends. You need to get out there and start making contacts. So think about what career, what industry you want to get into. Find the local trade associations in New York City, New Jersey, who cover that, and start going out to those events. And last thing I'm going to talk about tonight, and then I want to shut up and let you guys ask questions. There's an interview that's not an interview at all. It's an informational interview. So what that means is you want to go out and you want to take a turkey baster. This is, I'm giving you a descriptive narrative. It's not an actual thing. You want to go meet these people, stick it in their ear, and suck out their gray matter, their brain. I know, graphic, right? An informational interview is analogous to taking as much information from somebody who has a job in a company you want to work for, has recently gone into an industry straight out of college that you're dying to get into, somebody who knows somebody who works in a company. What is it like there? What's a typical day? What is their major? Do they use any of their classwork in their day job? How did they find that job? What are the trade associations that they belong to? What newspapers do they read? What e-newsletters? What blogs do they read? Is there a YouTube channel on that company? What are the things that they can tell you you should know about as a Wagner graduate? Start to make those relationships now. Find people that you can talk to get information from, because what you want to learn is which people you have found in your network have been successful making a transition into the kind of industries you want to get in or get the kind of jobs you want, having come from a similar background from you. The stuff you'll never find out about companies you may want to work at when you're on the outside looking in. That's what an informational interview is all about. So I'm going to close up now and give you guys the rest of 15 minutes or so to ask questions. But it's important you understand, whether you're buying a chocolate bar, an iPad, a cell phone, a car, an apartment, in life, you don't get what you're worth, you get what you negotiate. You need to understand how much somebody coming out of a college is making to get into the kind of industry you're looking to break into, in the same market area you're looking to break into, in specific companies. You can find that out a little bit by going to certain websites like salarycalculator.com, but the best way is to ask peers who have graduated and already working in industry how much you can expect to make. And the Career Development Center has a lot of that information. They'll give you a range, and they'll say if you're just starting out, you can expect to make in this industry, in this kind of company, in this market area, between 28 and 45 or 35 and 50. They'll know. But the worst thing you can do is go in not knowing exactly what potential compensation you can get. So that's pretty much it. I was going to talk a little bit about interviewing, but if you guys want to ask questions in the next 15 minutes about anything or even about interviewing, I'm going to open up the floor and let Jeff moderate, but I'm here to answer any questions. Yes, sir. And if I had my book with me, I'd give you a copy just for raising your hand first.
I know you were talking about earlier, trying to find jobs that, have your particular interest or, that relate to your core values. But is it what in a case where you want two things but they kind of contradict each other? Like, you want the money, you want to have a successful work life, but you also want to have enough time to spend with your family personal life. Like in that case, what would you do if trying to find a job that would be suitable?
I would say that it's hard to give you an answer when you're talking about two things that are generic, like salary and work-life balance. But I will say this. If you go for the money, you will be disappointed 99 times out of 100. If you follow your passion, the money will follow you. It may take a little bit longer, but start with the idea of, if the value that you want out of life is you want a place that values you, that treats you with respect, that allows you to give ideas that they take in and incorporate, then you're not going to go work at a company like Goldman Sachs. Yeah, I said it. or Bear Stearns or Merrill Lynch or Lehman Brothers. You're going to go work in an organization like Zappos or Tom's Shoes or a nonprofit. Follow what is most important to you. The money will follow. But there's a price tag to be had for everything. How much is it worth for you? What's the number? $100,000 a year? To wake up every day, 52 weeks a year, 60 hours a week, going into a job that you hate and getting a fat paycheck. Because the money is never why you go find that first job out of school. Don't do it. I did it. Do not do it. What he said. Don't do it. So between the two, not knowing your particulars, don't go for the money. The money will follow you. If you're doing something you're passionate about, you will be exceptional at your job. You will get promoted. You will work in an organization that sees your value. You won't get downsized. They'll keep you. They'll love you. They'll praise you. They'll promote you. They'll give you certain things that money isn't a part of. And at the end of the day, that's more valuable. Thank you. What else? Tough time. You guys have filled out the last few questions on the survey. You got one foot out the door. You're like jonesing to get out of here. Stop. Hammer time. What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? You may have had an uncle, aunt, parent say something to you recently, or they're on your back to tell you you need to start looking for work, or you may be thinking about things. What are you wondering? Do you want me to bust out my M&M? This is one moment, one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted. Will you capture? Don't laugh. It could happen. I saw Pitch Perfect with my daughter. I'm all that. What's your question? You're thinking. Your minds are spinning. I see it. I've only seen one person partially falling asleep, and he's not here. You're obviously thinking. What are you thinking about? Yes, ma'am.
Do these also relate to...
These what?
All these tips.
Oh, the tips. Okay.
Like overseas stuff.
Yes, but that's a phenomenal question. One of the things you have to understand is cultural sensitivity. So it's not just how women are treated versus men. It's people in their 20s are perceived versus their 30s, 40s. In certain cultures, for example, Muslim cultures, if you're sitting across from somebody, you would never raise your foot and show them the bottom of your foot. In certain cultures, like Latino and Asian cultures, if somebody handed you, or you handed them your business card, you would take it with two hands, and you would put it, you would have a business card holder, preferably gold, and you'd put it in. Why do you think that is? What's on a business card? What information? Your name, your job title. People, especially Asians, value that information on your business card. That's saying who you are. And it's Americans, you'll see at a job fair, they take it, they rumple it up. The other thing, if you go to a job fair or you're meeting with a group of people, your business card's in your left pocket, their business card's in the right pocket. You need to learn how to shake hands. Somebody who shakes the hand may give you the dead fish. The other person goes in and squeezes it and breaks 3 bones. It's the vice. You have to learn how to practice with your interviewing shaking hands. Another question about interviewing overseas. Some people, some cultures, and some organizations, especially in Hong Kong, they interview you, depending on the kind of culture, you may sit down with 20 or 30 people interviewing you. You have to be prepared. But so the biggest thing about going overseas is cultural considerations. And also cost of living. You know, if you're going to go to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, that's a lot different than going to Venezuela or going to Kenya in terms of cost of living. So there's a lot of considerations beyond just what you'd be doing there. Some companies and some organizations actually have families who can sponsor you to bring you into that overseas community. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question regarding research. When you're researching a company, a lot of times I find that the website, like you were saying, it's a lot of formal
Yep.
material, and it doesn't really help me with finding out the culture of the company. So I'm wondering if you had any advice as to where to find all that.
There's one resource which is skewed to negative, and that's rant, what's called employer rant websites. Past employers, current employers. It's a bitch and moan session where they talk about their experiences working there. So that's one. The other is, are they publicly traded? Do they have their stock traded on a stock exchange? Because then you would go to the Securities and Exchange Commission, has a website called EDGAR, EDGAR. It's the Electronic Data Gathering and Retrieval. They put every company's quarterly and annual statements there. But there's DMB, Hoover's, there's industry information. And the best place for other information, not just about companies, organizations, and places to work, every 10 years they go out and they survey the whole American population. What is that called? Census Bureau. I was just involved in the 2010. So this U.S. Census. And then if you're, Staten Island Chamber of Commerce, business, professional, merchant associations, there's a wealth of information. You're right, the website has nothing to do sometimes with reality. It's funny. Go, if you ever want to laugh, and I mean laugh like you bust a gut, go check out British Petroleum's website and read how they rant and rave about their commitment to society. I'm sorry, they didn't get it. British Petroleum, the Gulf, British Petroleum, the company that since the 1970s, every time they put together their annual budget, they have a line item for lawsuits where they have class action lawsuits because they every year have accidents where their employees die through gas explosions. They have a line item on their budget at British Petroleum. You know, the ones who created the new logo that has the sun and it looks so eco-friendly? You're not going to find that on their website. So there's a number of research resources that are available to. The other thing is the Career Development Center has a wealth of knowledge about probably organizations that are local or no organizations, especially where there are people that you may want to work for and work at who are Wagner alumni. Awesome question. How are we doing, sir?
Maybe we have time for one more.
If you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything, his arms are sweaty. Vomit from mom's spaghetti. He's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on. Really?
I have another
Seize
question.
it! Seize it! Holler!
Well, in your life experience with interviewing people, has there ever been a specific person that really stood out to you?
You know, when I was in my mid-20s and I was working on a project at Dun & Bradstreet, I was project managing 500 employees globally on a software product that was worth about $250 million in annual revenue. And for over the 8 months, I was just a manager, a marketing manager in my mid-20s. At the end of the project, I was promoted to a director. And so one of the first things I did in that new role was I interviewed college students who I was looking for hiring for unpaid interns. Is that kind of an example? Was that? Okay. So the person who blew my socks off, Letitia, I was interviewing a bunch of college students from local universities. And so we sit down. She gets there early. You always get there 15 minutes early. She introduces herself to our secretary. She treated our secretary with more civility and respect than most of the employees at Dun & Bradstreet. She sat down. She had her index cards. And I know this because when you go on an interview and you're sitting in the reception area, you're being interviewed by a whole bunch of people you're not even aware of. So I was talking to the secretary, the receptionist later on, and she was telling me how pleasant Letitia was and giving me all this positive feedback. She brought her into my office. We sat down. She said, I want to thank you for finding the time to meet with me. I remember because we kept in touch, and I check in periodically with her on this thing called LinkedIn and Facebook. So throughout the course of the interview, she kept answering questions. And I didn't have a chance to tell you this. Every time when you're being interviewed, if somebody asks you a crappy question, because most people interview you don't know what they're doing. That's the truth. You need to think about every question that you're going to answer. Add on the end of it, as it applies to my opportunity to do a great job. She knew her success story. She kept stopping at the appropriate points. She looked every time I asked her a question. She obviously had been rehearsed by somebody who knew what they were doing. She would look a little bit past my head, and she was concentrating. Whether or not it was a brilliant question I asked or not, she kept saying things like, when we sit down and you do my first performance review, how will you gauge success? When I get off my probationary 90-day period, how will you determine if I'm successful? She said something, I always called her on this, I always teased her. She would say things like, the job description has a lot of responsibilities listed. What are the 2 or 3 things that you are looking for that's most critical for success? I was just blown away. At the end of the interview, she thanked me again. She reiterated how interested she was in the position, and she did what I always tell my students, the ones I teach, you always close the deal. It's a sales call. An interview is a sales meeting. She said, who's responsible for making the next move? Will you want me to contact you, or will you contact me? And when? The worst thing you can do when you walk out of an interview is be totally clueless who makes the next step. Do they expect you to call them? Are you going to keep calling them when they are going to call you when they're ready? She did everything. And after the interview, I got a personal note. She had beautiful penmanship, and she sent it to me, not only an email, a shorter version, she sent me the longer version, certified mail. Gorgeous, gorgeous stationery that you could just buy at a Staples in a box for 100 sheets. She had obviously gone into a stationer and had really, really sharp, beautiful parchment. And she was hired, and I kept in touch with her, and that internship became a full-time position. And when I left D&B to go to Reuters, I stole her and brought her with me. 22 or 23 years old. I brought her with me, and I left D&B. You will make an impression. You have to think about yourself in closing up tonight. As a brand, you want to package all the things that you do that are unique. Because if you basically say, I'm just going to talk about my classes, I'm going to talk about my experience, and not promote yourself, you're doing what's called the dollar store, or thrifty. That's the best analogy. It's a me too. Hi, I do this too. You're exceptional. Talk about the things that you know set yourself apart as truly exceptional. That's what marketers do. Because at the end of the day, you're competing globally. We're in the 21st century global contract economy. The only thing that distinguishes one product from another is the brand. You don't believe me? Ask me to send you a video of a cool 17-minute talk a guy gave about Apple. Apple doesn't do anything different than any of its competitors. You know that, I know that. They have the same technology, the same product development, the same materials. They have access to the same labor market. They make the same things as Compact Dell Gateway. The only thing that they do that's different is they never tell what they do or how they do it. They say why they do what they do. You have to say why you chose Wagner, what your experiences here has taught you, what lessons have you learned that you're ready to take out with you into the world. You talk about work-life balance, values that your family taught you. That's what people are going to hire you based off of. Your skills, your classwork, your GPA, everybody has comparable stuff. What makes you different? And one of the things that I was most fortunate was I busted my ass in college. They said you're too short, too fat, you can't play. I walked on and played football. It was Division III. I also worked at Benetton was the hot thing back then in the late 80s. I was the one short, fat, husky kid who was playing football, who was taking 5 classes, who also worked as a regional sales manager in the mall. You put as much stuff on your plate that at the end of the day, an employer can look at that and say, you've got these phenomenal things that make you unique. If you don't, you're leaving it up to chance whether they're going to hire you. Job market is too tough. It's no joke. Okay, I let it. Yeah, I let him.
Okay. So in these interviews, say you're talking about yourself, you're referencing numbers and your experience, things you've done.
Yes.
How do you judge and kind of balance that fine line of sounding too egotistical?
That's a big no-no. That's a great question. It's tough when somebody interviewing is in their 30s or 40s or even 50s, and they can sense that the writing's on the wall. They're either in the process of being laid off themselves, or you want to be careful, and this is where interviewing practice and rehearsal comes in. Sit with people who have experience training people how to interview. You want to talk about what you've done in terms of your academic career and any jobs, internships, class projects that you've had. You're not, I did this and I did that. It's a fine balancing act. You want to say, this was the challenge that I faced in this class, these were the actions that I took, and this was the result. I got an... Some of the best, you know what Letitia did? You know, talk about the best person who I ever interviewed? She said, she stopped me in the middle of the interview and said, I want to talk to you about a class I took called Calculus, where I got a C+. Okay, really? That's what you're leading with? That's not a strong poker hand. You want to lead with a C+? She spent time talking about what a challenge that class was. It sang to my heart because I had to drop out of the business program and go get a communications degree because I sucked at calculus and I went to Bronx Science. And so I said, tell me more about that. And she said, I really struggled. It was the hardest class I ever had. I got 4 A's and a C+, and throughout the whole semester I had to go in for special. I had to do one-on-one mentor. I had to take special, tutoring. I had to, I invested the most time all semester in this class, and I was so proud. She was telling me about the C+ she got, and that was kind of revealing. It was kind of neat because she talked about a challenge that she was faced with and the result of a C+, and that resonated with me. You don't want to sound pompous. Yes, what you've done may be phenomenal, but you want to sound like very matter of fact. This is just, it takes practice to do this in your interviewing. This was a challenge I was faced with. These are the actions I took. These are the results I achieved. And your resume is going to be written the same way. Every bullet point of every job you've ever had. At that company, I had these 6 challenges. This was the challenge I was faced with. These are the actions I took. These are the results. You don't want to come across as being, again, I said it before, pompous. But you don't want to be arrogant. You want to be self-confident. It's a tough, tough balancing act. That's why you should be, right now, getting comfortable being interviewed. You have friends, 2 or 3 friends who are going through this together, fellow seniors, also in your business program. Go through this, practice, sit around the table, ask each other interviewing questions. It'll only benefit you. And the worst thing you can do, you know what I hate, is when you ask a question and somebody doesn't know the answer and they ramble on and on. You say, you know what? That's a fantastic question. I don't know the answer to it, but what I'd like to do is do some research, and after our interview, can I go back and provide you with that additional information? I've had that happen before. You're not going to know everything. Don't make stuff up. It's the best advice I can give. I sound pompous sometimes. It's a hard balancing act. Nothing compares to experience. Look at your resume, look at your history, your background, the classes you've taken, the extracurriculars, the courses. I mean, anything that you've done, think about it. So what? Who cares? Why is this important? Is this unique? Is this me too? How do I package this all together? And then go set up your first session with the Career Development Center. They're experts at this. And they also have contacts in the local business community. And they have a plug-in, hopefully, to the alumni organization, or you may want to go pursue the alumni organization later on.